भागवत प्रभु परिध्वांतो विदादित्य श्री कृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानंद पाठाय प्रेम वर्षक्षराय ते सर्वदा सर्वसेवया श्री कृष्णाय नमस्तु मे मोदेक बंधो मत्संगित मद्गुरो वन्महाधर वंदस्तारक मंथाग्य मदानंद नमोस्तुते प्रसाधु साधु दादायन मति नीचोच्चताकर हानुमंज कदाचिन मां प्रेमणा कंठयो स्फुरा ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. Okay, so let's resume. Text 31. नारायणे भगवति तदं तदिदं विश्वमाहितं गृहीतमायोरुगुणः सर्गादावगुणः स्वतः. All the material manifestations of the universe are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes. Yad adhishtanam ityeta prashnottarartham upasamharati narayana iti. This is the answer to the question. Who is your basis? स्वतः मायागुण स्पष्टः अपि सर्गादौ कार्य यादृच्छिक दृष्टिमात्रेण अनुगृहीत मायोरुगुणः. So even though not spashtah, it must be sprishtah. Right, let me check proper edition of Kamasandaram. So 2.6.30. मायागुण अस्पृष्टः अपि. Even though the Supreme Lord is personally not touched by the gunas of Maya. The Supreme Lord simply somehow glances at uh, the process that is going on in the form of creation, maintenance, annihilation, and so on. So it appears that Maya is actually superimposed on him and that he is very actively creating. In fact, he has accepted these qualities of Maya in the form of Brahma, Rudra, and so on. By himself, he is Aguna, Aguna Swataha. By himself, he is Aguna. The question put by Narada before Brahma concerning the sustenance of the material creation is thus answered. Material actions and reactions, as the material scientist can superficially observe, are not basically ultimate truth in regard to creation, maintenance, and destruction. The material energy is a potency of the Lord, which is displayed in time, accepting the three qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance in the forms of Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. The material energy thus works under the supreme spell of his lordship, although he is always transcendental to all such material activities. A rich man constructs a big house by spending his energy in the shape of resources, and similarly, he destroys a big house by his resources, but the maintenance is always under his personal care. The Lord is the richest of the rich because he's always fully complete in six opulences. Therefore, he's not required to do anything personally, but everything in the material world is carried out by his wishes and direction. Therefore, the entire material manifestation is situated in Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Truth is due to lack of knowledge only, and this fact is clearly explained by Brahmaji, who is supposed to be the creator of the universal affairs. Brahmaji is the highest authority in Vedic wisdom, and his assertion in this connection is therefore the supreme information. Text 32. Srijami tanniyuktoham haro harati tadvashah vishvam purusharupena paripati trishaktidhrit. By his will, I create. Lord Shiva destroys, and he himself in his eternal form, as the personality of Godhead, maintains everything. He is a powerful controller of these three energies. Yat parastvam. He had asked the question, who are you focusing on? Narada Muni had asked Lord Brahma this question. And in text 20 of the previous chapter, the question was also from the previous chapter. He had stated that the Supreme Lord of all is also my Lord. Now he concludes the discussion on that point here. Palanam tu swayameva karoti. Maintenance is something that he does himself. Purusha Rupena, Vishnu Rupena, in the form of Vishnu. Tri Shakti Dhrik. Tri Shaktir Maya. Tam Dharati iti tathasa. Tri Shakti Dhrik means the upholder of Tri Shakti. Tri Shakti refers to Maya. So here, it is because of him that Maya is able to function. Atmanaha arasya cha tan niyamyatvam Vishnostu sakshat tadrupatvam darshayati. Purusha Rupena iti. In the first half of the verse, he had stated that Lord Brahma had states that he himself and Lord Hara is Lord Shiva, are both subject to Lord Vishnu's control. Then in the second half of the verse, he points out that Lord Vishnu himself directly is in charge of protection. Purushaha Paramatma Sakshat Tadrupena Eva Vishnu Nama Avatarena Tri Shakti Dhrik Purushaha Eva Paripati Atu Sargasam Arayo Iva Tatra Tatra Avishta Amshena Ityartha. The Purusha here, Purusha Rupena, refers to the Paramatma. And in that very form, in an incarnation named Vishnu, as the Purusha who upholds Maya, who is known as Trishakti, he maintains the universe. Not like at the time of creation and annihilation. The Supreme Lord enters into Brahma, enters into Shiva through a portion of him in order to carry out creation and destruction, not in that indirect manner. Harasyatan niyamyatvena rajastamo yoga hetukam tatah parthakyamukva Vishnostu sattva-guna yuktatvepi shuddha sattve sattvasya apakarakatva abhavena audasinya rupatvena cha vastutah tu yoga eveti nirgunatvasya phalitatvad sakshadeva purusha rupatvam darshayati. As the controller of Hara, he is bringing about contact with Rajoguna, Tamoguna. as the controller of Brahma and Ara. But there is a distinction here. Even though Vishnu is connected with Sattva Guna, he is actually in Vishuddha Sattva. And he is, so there's nothing negative about it. And he's also indifferent to Sattva Guna. He's not attached to Sattva Guna. So in reality, he is not connected because ultimately he is Nirguna. He is beyond the three modes of material nature. Trishakti Drik means the one who upholds Triguna Maya Shakti Dharaha, one who upholds the potency of Maya, which consists of the three gunas. Another meaning of Trishakti Drik is Antaranga Bahiranga Tatastha Shakti Dharahava. He is the one who upholds the potencies of internal, external, and marginal nature. That way also he is Trishakti. The conception of one without a second is clearly confirmed here. The one is Lord Vasudeva, and only by his different energies and expansions are different manifestations, both in the material and in the spiritual worlds, maintained. In the material world also, Lord Vasudeva is everything. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7.19, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, everything is Vasudeva only. In the Vedic hymns also, the same Vasudeva is held to be supreme. It is said in the Vedas, Vasudeva Paro Brahman Nachanyo Thos Titatvataha. In fact, there is no greater truth than Vasudeva. And Lord Krishna affirms the same truth in the Bhagavad Gita 7.7. Pattah Parataram Nanyat. There is nothing above me, Lord Krishna. So the conception of oneness, as overly stressed by the impersonalist, is also accepted by the personalist devotee of the Lord. The difference is that the impersonalist denies personality in the ultimate issue, whereas the devotee gives more importance to the personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam explains this truth in the verse under discussion. Lord Vasudeva is one without a second, but because he is all powerful, he can expand himself as well as display his omnipotencies. The Lord is described here as omnipotent by three energies, Trishakti Drik. So primarily his three energies are internal, marginal, and external. This external energy is also displayed in the three modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Similarly, the internal potency is also displayed in three spiritual modes, Samvit, Sandhini, and Hladini. The marginal potency or the living entities is also spiritual. Pratim Vithime Param. But the living entities are never equal to the Lord. The Lord is Nirasta Samya Atishaya. In other words, no one is greater than or equal to the Supreme Lord. So the living entities, including even such great personalities as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, are all subordinate to the Lord. In the material world also, in his eternal form of Vishnu, he maintains and controls all the affairs of the demigods, including Brahma and Shiva. Text 33. Iti tevi hitam tat yathedam manapritchasi manyad bhagavatah kinchit bhavyam sad dasadatmakam. My dear son, whatever you have inquired from me, I have thus explained unto you, and you must know for certain that whatever there is, either as cause or as effect, both in the material and spiritual worlds, that whatever there is, either as cause or as effect, both in the material and spiritual worlds, is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is a general answer to all the questions, such as by whom is this universe existing? Who is the very soul of this universe? And so on. So there was a general answer that was given. It is simply due to Lord Vasudeva that anything exists, otherwise it cannot exist in reality. And then it was reinforced with reference to the Purusha Sutta text. Purusha Sutta text. Now he concludes this point of discussion. Saddasadatmakam. Saddasadatmakam. Whatever there is as cause or effect. Karya karanatmakam bhavyam srijyam. Anything which is meant to be created. Bhavyam means which is meant to be created. Which could be a cause or an effect. Bhagavata sakashat anyat pratham na bhavati. It is not separate from Bhagavan. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains Saddasadatmakam, Karya Karanatmakam, Tripad, Ekapadatmakam cha. It refers to the spiritual world and the material world. Bhagavata sakashat anyatvaya na bhavyam na chintaniyam. It's not possible for you to think of anything which is distinct from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The complete cosmic situation, both in the material and in the spiritual manifestations of the energies of the Lord, is working, moving first as the cause and then as the effect. But the original cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Effects of the original cause become the causes of other effects. And thus everything being permanent or temporary is working as cause and effect. And because the Lord is the primeval cause of all persons and all energies, he is called the cause of all causes, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita as well as in the Bhagavad Gita. The Brahma Samhita 5.1 affirms, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha, Nadir Adir Govinda Sarvat Karana Karanam. And in the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, it is said, Ham Sarvasya Prabho Matta Sarvam Pravartate, Itimatva Bhajante Mam Buddha Bhava Samanvita. So the original primeval cause is Vigraha, the personal, and the impersonal spiritual effulgence Brahmajyoti is also an effect of the Supreme Brahman. Brahmano hi pratishtaham, Lord Krishna. Text 34. न भारती मेंगम विश्वोपलक्ष्यते न वै क्वचिन में मनसो मृषागति न मे ऋषिकानि पतन्त्य सत्पथे यन्मे हृदोत्कण्ठ्य वथा धृतो हरिः. O Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of God and Hari with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to be false. Nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. Yaduktam etavat tvam yatah hi me tam avigyaya mam ishwaram pravishi iti tad upapadya upasamharati na bharati. So it was previously stated that without understanding who God is, you are referring to me as God. Now, he, having pointed out how this is the fact, he concludes, यदि अस्मान में मया उत्कंठ्यम भक्ति उद्रेकः तद युक्तेन हृदा हरिर्हृतः ध्यातः संग हे नारद अतः मे वाङ्मन इन्द्रियाणां वृत्तयः सत्यार्थः न तु मत् प्रभावेण इत्यर्थः. When I hold on to Lord Hari in meditation within my heart due to an excess of ecstatic devotion, then because of that, because I'm like that, therefore my speech, my mind, my senses, all of these function properly. It is not actually because of me. So whatever I am speaking is because of an increase of devotion service, and therefore it is correct. That is the point. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that he anticipated Narada Muni asking the following question. You are saying that the triquadrantal manifestation, which is beyond the three modes of material nature, is eternal. And then you say that this world of the three modes of material nature, the unique quadrantal manifestation of opulence, that is an effect of the Supreme Personality of God, its external Maya potency, who is ashamed to come before him. Nevertheless, you say that it is not false. So you say that these Mayic entities are also true. But there are other knowers of Shastra, Vedic Shastra. They say that everything here is simply a sportive expansion of the thought process of one's mind, and therefore it is simply mithya, false. And they also say that the nature of Bhagavan, that is also not eternal, because that is not the real feature of the Supreme Brahman. So what to speak about the triquadrantal manifestations? So now who should I believe? Should I believe in your words, your version, or should I believe in their version? Anticipating this, Brahma says, Mama iyam tubhyam ukta va namrisha. What I have spoken to you is not false. Tatra hetu. The reason for that. Nava iti. Sarvatra hetur outkantitena manasa maya haridhrita. The cause for everything that I am speaking is that I have held Lord Hari in my mind with eagerness to serve him. Yatra haris tatraiva sarvam satyam iti mad vachiyeva vishwasihi. Believe my words when I say that wherever Lord Hari is, that is certainly completely true. Tair anyaihi shastra vidbhirapi harir manasa nadritaha. The other knowers of Shastra, they have not held Lord Hari in their hearts. Ataha manasastasyam vrisheva gata. Therefore, their minds move towards the direction of falsity. Ataha tesham vagapi vishaeva. Therefore, their speech is also false. Iti mithyavadinam tesham matam ma angikrathaha. Iti bhava. So the implication is, don't accept the perspective of those who claim that everything about the Supreme Lord is mithya, or everything about this universe is mithya. Lord Brahma is the original speaker of Vedic wisdom to Narada. And Narada is the distributor of transcendental knowledge all over the world through his various disciples like Vyasadeva and others. The followers of Vedic wisdom accept the statements of Brahmaji as gospel truth. And transcendental knowledge is thus being distributed all over the world by the process of disciplic succession from time immemorial, since the beginning of the creation. Lord Brahma is a perfect, liberated, living being within the material world, and any sincere student of transcendental knowledge must accept the words and statements of Brahmaji as infallible. The Vedic knowledge is infallible because it comes down directly from the Supreme Lord unto the heart of Brahma, and since he is the most perfect living being, Brahmaji is always correct to the letter. And this is because Lord Brahma is a great devotee of the Lord, who has earnestly accepted the lotus feet of the Lord as a supreme truth. In the Brahma Samhita, which is compiled by Brahmaji, he repeats the aphorism, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I am the worshipper of the original personality of Godhead Govinda, the primeval Lord. So whatever he says, whatever he thinks, and whatever he does normally in his mood are to be accepted as truth because of his direct and very intimate connection with Govinda, the primeval Lord. Sri Govinda, who pleasingly accepts the loving transcendental service of his devotees, gives all protection to the words and actions of his devotees. The Lord declares in the Bhagavad Gita 9.31, Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. O son of Kunti, please declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. The Lord asks Arjuna to declare it. And why? Because sometimes the declaration of Govinda himself may seem contradictory to mundane creatures. But the mundaner will never find any contradiction in the words of the Lord's devotees. The devotees are especially protected by the Lord so that they remain infallible. Therefore, the process of devotion service always begins with the service of the devotee who appears in disciplic succession. The devotees are always liberated, but that does not mean that they are impersonal. The Lord is a person eternally, and the devotee of the Lord is also a person eternally, because the devotee has his sense organs even at the liberated stage. He is therefore a person always. And because the devotee's service is accepted by the Lord in full reciprocation, the Lord is also a person in his complete spiritual embodiment. The devotee senses, being engaged in the service of the Lord, never go astray under the attraction of false material enjoyment. The plans of the devotee never go in vain, and all this is due to the faithful attachment of the devotee for the service of the Lord. This is a standard of perfection and liberation. Anyone beginning from Brahmaji down to the human being is at once put on the path of liberation simply by his attachment in great earnestness for the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, the primeval Lord. The Lord affirms this in the Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Mam chayog vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Anyone, therefore, who is earnestly serious in heart and soul about being in intimate touch with the personality of God and in the relationship of transcendental loving service, will always be infallible in words and action. The reason is that the Supreme Lord is the absolute truth, and anything earnestly dovetailed with the absolute truth attains the same transcendental quality. On the other hand, any amount of mental speculation on the strength of material science and knowledge without any bona fide touch with the absolute truth is sure to be a mundane untruth and failure simply due to not being in touch with the absolute truth. Such godless, unfaithful words and actions, however materially enriched, are never to be trusted. That is the purport of this important verse. A grain of devotion is more valuable than tons of faithlessness. 635. Soham sa mam naya mayastapo maya prajapati nam abhivanditah pati asthaya yogam nipunam samahitas tam nadhya gacham yata atma sambhava. Although I am known as the great Brahma, perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities and I am an expert in mystic powers and realization, and although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand Him, the Lord, the very source of my birth. Yes.
Prabhu, in previous verse, uh, devotees' plans never goes in vain. So this is like talk about pure devotees, and presently, if I am not on that level, but still I am engaged in planning certain aspects in the service given. So it fails also many of the times. So how can this be reduced till the time I am not on that level of a pure devotee? That plan does not go in vain, because many times we plan and it just goes in vain, or the results does not come.
So therefore, we have to make spiritual progress. We have to progress and come to the point of full-fledged purity. After that, when Krishna takes charge of us fully, then it is up to him to do whatever he wants. Right now, we may have to execute all of this planning for service, but it is bound to be imperfect. You should just be aware of that. So, okay.
Prabhu,
Hmm.
how can we understand that Lord Krishna has taken full charge of us?
Just as when you finish eating, you know that you've finished eating. So, like that, when you progress in Vairagya Vidya Bhakti, you will understand that. Just as a person who's blind and who's undergoing eye operation to regain his eyesight, how does he know that the operation is successful? He knows because he can see. That's all. So like that. Okay.
So any other example?
What any other example? Just as a person who does not have the sense of hearing, he undergoes an ear operation. And then when he regains his sense of hearing, then he knows that the operation is successful. Do you want me to explain through each of the other knowledge acquiring senses? It's the same thing.
Practically, we don't see, Prabhu, that Krishna is taking surrender charge of us or not.
Practically, we may not be doing what is written in the books now. We're just doing something, that's all. And we are just glorifying ourselves. Prabhupada had an expression for it. Forget it. It was a British expression. It was a British expression. Society of mutual admiration. We group ourselves and each one is very humble individually, but we glorify everyone else. So I say, I'm so wretched, useless, nonsense, but all of you are great. And then one of you tell me, no, I am wretched, but all of you are great. And then another one in the group, he says, no, I am the wretched one, but all of you are great. So in that way, all of us feel so good about each other. We are all great, we are all secure, everything is fine. Complete delusion, group delusion, that's all. So Prabhupada didn't want that our society develops into a society of mutual admiration. We come to reality. Okay, let's move on. अत्र स्वानुभावम् एव अन्वयव्यतिरेकाभ्यां प्रमाणयति द्वाभ्याम्. And then in two verses beginning with text 35, he points out the evidence for directly and indirectly supporting his own experience. Soham samam nayadibhi sarvotkrishtaha api. Even though I am most exalted, yogam ashritya api. Even though I have taken shelter of a spiritual process, yataha atmanaha mama sambhavaha janma tammeva na gyatavam. But I did not understand my birth, the source of my uh, existence, that personality. Utaha anyasya varta. What to speak of other things. Tacha, Tatiya skande, padmodbhave vakshiyate. This will be stated in the third canto while discussing the generation of the universal lotus. एतादृशीं भक्तिं विना तु पूर्वं मम नाना साधनवतोऽपि नास्फुरत्. Without this kind of devotion, with earnestness, uh, we are. If I don't hold on to Lord Hari, without this kind of devotional service unto Lord Hari, previously, even though I executed various sadhanas, various endeavors, he did not reveal himself to me. The truth was not revealed to me. ननु ते वयमेव सर्ववेदशास्त्रतात्पर्यं विद्वांसः परमेश्वरस्वरूपं जानीमः इति अभिमन्यन्ते. तथैव ज्ञानपि युक्त्या बोधयन्ति च इति. So there are some who say that we understand the purport of all the Vedic scripture. We understand the nature of the Supreme Lord. In response to that, he says, Soham Purvashlokokta Lakshanaha Sotkanta Hridayadhr Daridhrita Harirapi Aham. Even though I have held on to Lord Hari with earnestness, as I have discussed in the previous shloka, Mamnayamaya iti pratamam amnaya mamayeva mukhebhyah nisrishta. The amnaya, the four Vedas, Vedic knowledge, it has actually come out of my mouths. Yeshamartham anye te anyapi jityasante eva iti bhava. The others are simply trying to understand what they were. But they have come from me. I know. Tapomaya. Sparsheshu yat षोडशम एकविंशम निष्किंचनानां नृपयद्धनं विदुः इति भगवदादिष्टं तपः प्रथमं मयैव तत्त्वम् इति स्वस्य ज्ञानविज्ञाने दर्शिते. When it comes to austerity, I am the first person who did tapasya directly on the instruction of the Supreme Lord. This will be spelled out later in this canto. So I possess knowledge and realization because of because the Vedas have come from me. I have studied the Vedas. I know, so I have knowledge. And because I did austerities to please the Supreme Lord, therefore I have realized knowledge of the Vedas. Bhagavad Dattam Aishwaryam cha aha prajeti adi. Apart from that, I also possess opulences which have been given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am worshipable. I am the worshipable master of all the forefathers of the living entity. Yogeshwarattvapi mama nasti iti na vaktavyam. So one cannot say that I do not have the nature of a Yogeshwara, a master of yoga. Samahita. Ekagrikkrita chittopi. My mind has been made concentrated on the Supreme Being. Tam Bhagavantam na adhyagacham na gyatavanasmi. Still, I could not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tatra hetuhu. And the reason, yataha atmanaha mama sambhavaha srishtihi. Because he is the one who generated me. Hanta hanta mat srishta anye vigyamanyaha tam katham janiyuhu. So in that case, how is it that those who have been created by me and who imagine that they know, how can they know in reality that Supreme Lord? Yetu bhagavatvam tarsasya lakshanam bruvate yetu andhayeveti bhava. And those who think that the nature of Bhagwan is not a primary characteristic of him, they are certainly blind in spiritual life, blind in spiritual knowledge. Brahma, the greatest of all living creatures within the universe, is admitting his failure to know the Supreme Lord despite his vast learning in the Vedic wisdom, despite his austerity, penance, mystic powers, and self-realization, and despite being worshipped by the great Prajapatis, the forefathers of the living entity. So these qualifications are not sufficient to know the Supreme Lord. Brahmaji could understand the Lord to a little extent only when he was trying to serve him by the eagerness of his heart, without kantyavata, which is the devotion service mood. Therefore, the Lord can be known only by the sincere mood of eagerness for service and not by any amount of material qualification as scientist or speculative philosopher or by attainment of mystic powers. This fact is clearly corroborated in the Bhagavad Gita 18.54 to 55. Brahmabhuta prasannatma nashochati na kankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyashasmi tatvatah tato mam tatvato jnatva vishate taddanantaram. Only self-realization by attainment of the above high qualifications of Vedic wisdom, austerity, etc. can help one on the path of devotional service. But failing in devotional service, one remains still imperfect, because even in that position of self-realization, one cannot factually know the Supreme Lord. By self-realization, one is qualified to become a devotee, and the devotee by service mode, only, can gradually know the personality of God. One should not, however, misunderstand the import of Vishate, enters into. He enters into me. Vishate tadanantara. As referring to merging into the existence of the Supreme. Even in material existence, one is merged in the existence of the Supreme. No materialist can disentangle self from matter, for the self is merged in the external energy of the Lord. As no layman can separate butter from milk, no one can extricate the merged self from matter by acquiring some material qualification. This vishate by devotion, bhaktya, means to be able to participate in the association of the Lord in person. Bhakti or devotion service to the Lord means to become free from material entanglement and then to enter into the kingdom of God, becoming one like Him. Losing one's individuality is not the aim of Bhakti Yoga or of the devotees of the Lord. There are 5 types of liberation, one of which is called Sayujya Mukti, or being merged into the existence or body of the Lord. The other forms of liberation maintain the individuality of the particle soul and involve being always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The word Vishate, used in text 18.55 of the Bhagavad Gita, is just meant for the devotees who are not at all anxious for any kind of liberation. The devotees are satisfied simply in being engaged in the service of the Lord, regardless of the situation. Lord Brahma is the first living being who directly learned the Vedic wisdom from the Lord. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adika Vaye. Therefore, who can be a more learned Vedantist than Lord Brahma? He admits that in spite of his perfect knowledge in the Vedas, he was unable to know the glories of the Lord. Since no one can be more than Lord Brahma, how can a so-called Vedantist be perfectly cognizant of the absolute truth? The so-called Vedantists, therefore, cannot enter into the existence of the Lord without being trained in the matter of Bhakti Vedanta or Vedanta plus Bhakti. Vedanta means self-realization and Bhakti means realization of the personality of Godhead to some extent. No one can know the personality of Godhead in full, but at least to a certain extent, one can know the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead by self-surrender and a devotional attitude and by nothing else. In the Brahma Samhita also it is said, Vedeshu Turlabham, or simply by study of Vedanta, one can hardly find out the existence of the personality of Godhead. But the Lord is Aturlabham Atma Bhakto, very easily available to his devotee. The Vyasadeva, therefore, was not satisfied simply with compiling the Vedanta Sutras. But over and above this, by the advice of his spiritual master Narada, he compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam in order to understand the real import of Vedanta. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is the absolute medium by which to understand the absolute truth. That he says. Natosmyaham tat charanam samisham. Like I thought there was something in the chat box. You're saying that we are trying to progress very slowly, but I personally feel that this is the problem of leaders only, why they are not taking action on these things. Not only leaders, it may be non-leaders also, others also. Very few people will actually make rapid progress. That was very clearly understood by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur when he set up an institutional arrangement for the spreading of Krishna Bhakti. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never set up any institution, temple, monastery, mutt, and all that. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he arranged for it. Even though he knew very well that the vast majority will only be neophytes. That very arrangement will attract neophytes. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not do this because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was interested in very high achievements amongst the Vaishnava community. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur also was not inclined, but it was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur who felt that let people at least become Kanishta Vaishnava. And then gradually over lifetimes they may make some spiritual progress. When he was asked how many of the members of the Gaudiya Math, now the Gaudiya Math, first of all, it's a mutt, it's a monastery. Only brahmacharis, separated vanaprasthas and sannyasis would live in a mutt. They do, only these people are allowed to live in a mutt, in a monastery. The others would just come and go. And the activities are only Brahmanical in nature. There's no Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra activities. That is a mutt. And even then, when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was asked, how many of your Gaudiya Math members in the perfection of Krishna Bhakti? Then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he asked a counter question. He said that how many scientists in the scientific community, how many are as good as Sir Isaac Newton How many are like Jagadish Chandra Bose? Or in today's world, we will ask, how many Albert Einsteins are there? So it is understood to be a very exalted achievement to attain Krishna Prema, the perfection of sadhana bhakti in the form of bhava bhakti, prema bhakti, and so on. But nevertheless, the arrangement is there. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur continued. He said that just because so few scientists have turned out to be so great, do we stop the activity of scientific research? We don't. So like that, I'm giving a facility for all these people. So whoever takes up the opportunity, they will progress. When I joined ISKCON, I remember um, one renounced devotee. I had met him in South India. He's a Prabhupada disciple. He's now a sannyasi. So I asked him that how many in ISKCON have attained spiritual perfection? And he answered, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. Amongst thousands of men, very few endeavor to attain spiritual perfection. Yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam vedi tattvataha. And amongst those who are endeavoring, you will find some rare soul who has realized Krishna. So those who are joining ISKCON, you can consider that these persons are endeavoring to attain spiritual perfection. Out of this, there may be some rare soul who attains perfection, but the method actually works, which is simply verifiable. It is not unrealistic. It is something doable. Just like, and then later when I thought about it, I myself came to this conclusion that when you go in a train from one destination to another, if you have, those days we used to have something called timetable books. The train timetables were printed in the form of a book. It was published by Indian Railway. I think these books are still there. So we will look at the book and we will see the train is supposed to leave at this place at this time. It will supposed to reach this place at this time. So more or less when it matches, then we understand that the train is actually moving towards the destination. So like that, when we make spiritual progress, we understand that everything is according to what is stated. The Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and certain writings of the Acharyas, they point out the different milestones of spiritual progress. They also point out what happens when you regress. So we can easily individually verify these things. Achyutaram Prabhu.
Prabhuji, when Brahmaji is saying this realization, so, and then once you mentioned that Brahmaji is opposed, this our present Brahmaji is having this realization, which is recorded in Bhagavatam.
Yeah, this is referring to the present Brahma of our universe.
So when, because Bhagavatam is eternal, but this Brahmaji will change. So will these statements also will change from Bhagavatam? Some other Brahmaji will say something.
Possible. Bhagavatam is presented in the Smriti format.
Oh. Okay. And Prabhu, this Vishate part was not very clear. Like Vishate means enters into, and then Srila Prabhupada saying that actually it is not literally entering into. So what does
Just
it
like
mean?
you say, Baladev Vidyabhushan gives the example. Purim Vishate. He enters into a city. Okay. He enters into a city. He was traveling in the countryside and then he entered into the city. Now, when you say he entered into the city, that does not mean he merged into the city. Like that, he enters into Vishate Tadanantaram. He enters into that meaning. The Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Surayaha. Tad refers to the abode of Lord Vishnu. So he enters into that spiritual abode of Lord Vishnu. It doesn't mean he merges into that.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
This is where I feel this is not easy process, very, very tough process. Then how this will benefit poor people? What is poor people? Poor people, rich people, it's not, they got nothing to do with poverty. In fact, it's easier for
the uneducated, illiterate people.
what educated, uneducated, illiterate? Some uneducated, illiterate person, if he surrenders to Krishna, he will make rapid progress. It's not a question of mundane education. Question of understanding, learning, understanding. This is not an easy process. Yes, of course, it's not an easy process. Correct. We'll study that in Bhagavad Gita itself. Prabhupada writes that. It's not an easy process. Very, very tough. Very, very tough if you commit more. If we commit more and more offenses and sinful activities, it becomes very, very tough. If we avoid offenses, sinful activities, it becomes very, very easy. If we want to encourage devotees for rapid progress, what is the process? The process is we just have to obey what is written in the books without being disoriented by each other. That's all. We should not try to understand Krishna consciousness from each other's imperfect understandings. It's there, Prabhupada has explained everything in sufficient clarity. And we chant Hare Krishna increasingly. And then we surrender to Krishna, and Krishna will make us understand. Rapid progress means you should be willing to give up so many things. Everything, if we just have to carry out the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then things become clear. They're not some complicated mystery. It's just that we may not be very interested in rapid progress. Text 36. Natosmyaham tat charanam samiyusham bhavachidam swastyayanam sumangalam yo hyatmamaya vibhavam smaparyagat yathanavaswantam mathapare tutah. Therefore, it is best for me to surrender unto his feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So what can others do when the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits? So I offer my respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet, which can be very easily served, which brings about all auspiciousness, which removes, which stops the repetition of birth and death for those who are surrendered unto his lotus feet. Tato achintya mahimatvena gyatavan asmi kaimutya. In this way, the Supreme Lord's glory is inconceivable. And it is because of that that I am able to understand this much. Swamaya vistaram yah swayamapi paryagat. All right. 2.6 point. Point. It's point. Nishedha. The Supreme Lord himself does not understand the extent of his energy. So how can others understand? Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto his lotus feet. No sarvagya katham na janati anta abhavadi drishtantena. How is it that the Supreme Lord, who knows everything, does not know this? The answer is because there is no end to him. And he gives an example. Just as the sky does not estimate, cannot understand its own limits. And then there are similar statements in the 10th canto, Shruti also. Ataha namaskaraadi maya tad bhaktireva tasmin upayukta. Therefore, it is appropriate that one should simply engage in devotion service unto him by offering obeisances unto him and so on. Natu jnana prayasa, not endeavor to know him. Atma Maya atra swarupa shakti. Here, Atma Maya refers to his personal energies. Navo dushtanta shrutis tava shrutinam udakhritanam tatreva swarasya labdhe. Because in the 10th canto also, when the same discussion comes about, see the Swami is referring to 10th canto, chapter 87. This is prayers of the personified Vedas. There also, it is with reference to the Lord's personal potencies, not Maya Shakti. The example of the sky is just a crude example, because in reality, the sky within material existence does have limit. Ho Arvachina Varaka Bhagavatatvam Vayam Brumahe iti Pradapanti. Yato Bhagavanapi Swayam Swatatvam Vedatuna Prabhavati iti Bhakti Udrekena Tam Pranamati. Oh, we are such immature, souls, wretched, and we are talking about the truth of Bhagavan. But in reality, Bhagavan himself does not understand his truth. This is a statement made out of an excess of ecstatic devotion. So he states that while offering obeisances unto him. Destruction of typing mistake. Destruction of the distresses of samsara, material existence, amongst devotees who have taken shelter of his lotus feet is a side benefit. The actual benefit is swastyayanam, swaprema sukhadayakam. That lotus feet, it gives them the happiness of pure love to him. It is from this lotus feet that one actually attains auspiciousness. Nesham api karmi jnani yoginam tad bhakti mishratvam vina mangalya abhavat iti bhava. The implication is, even for the karmis, jnanis and yogis, the other members of Vedic culture, one needs to engage in his respective process by mixing it with Vishnu Bhakti. Without that, one will not attain auspiciousness. Lord Brahma, the greatest of all learned living beings, the greatest sacrificer, the greatest observer of the austere life, and the greatest self-realized mystic, advises us as a supreme spiritual master of all living beings that one should simply surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord in order to achieve all success, and even up to the limit of being liberated from the miseries of material life and being endowed with all auspicious spiritual existence. Lord Brahma is known as the Pitamaha, or the father's father. A young man consults his experienced father about discharging his duties. So the father is naturally a good advisor. For Lord Brahma is the father of all fathers. He's the father of Manu, who is the father mankind all over the universal planets. I think there's a editorial mistake here. He's the father of the father, Manu. It'll be like that. Therefore, the men of this insignificant planet should kindly accept the instruction of Brahmaji and would do well to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord rather than try to estimate the length and breadth of the Lord's potencies. His potencies are immeasurable, as confirmed in the Vedas. Parasya Shakti Vidhaiva Shuyate Swabhaviki Jnanam Balakriyacha Shvetashvatar Upanishad 6.8. He is the greatest of all, and all others, even the greatest of all living beings, namely Brahmaji, admits that the best thing for us is to surrender unto him. Therefore, only those persons with a very poor fund of knowledge claim that they themselves are lords of all that they survey. And what can they survey? They cannot survey even the length and breadth of a small sky in one small universe. The so-called material scientist says that he would need to live 40,000 years to reach the highest planet of the universe being carried by a Sputnik. This is also utopian because no one can be expected to live 40,000 years. Besides, when the space pilot returned from his travel, none of his friends would be present to receive him back as the greatest astronaut, as has become fashionable for modern bewildered scientific men. One scientific man who had no belief in God was very much enthusiastic in making plans for his material existence and therefore opened a hospital to save the living. But after opening the hospital, he himself died within 6 months. So one should not spoil his human life, which is obtained after many, many changes of bodies in 8,400,000 species of life, simply for the concocted material happiness of life through increasing artificial means in the name of advancement of economic development and scientific knowledge. Rather, one should simply surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord to make a solution to all miseries of life. That is the instruction of Lord Krishna directly in the Bhagavad Gita, and that is the instruction of Brahmaji, the Supreme Father of all living beings in Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyone denying this surrendering process as recommended both in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and for that matter in all authorized scriptures, will be forced to surrender unto the laws of material nature. The living entity, by his constitutional position, is not independent. He must surrender either unto the Lord or unto material nature. Material nature is also not independent of the Lord, since the Lord himself has claimed material nature as Mama Maya, or my energy, Bhagavad Gita 7.14, and as Me Bhinna Prakriti Ashtadha, or my separated energy in 8 divisions, Bhagavad Gita 7.4. Therefore, material nature is also controlled by the Lord, as he has claimed in Bhagavad Gita 9.10. Mayadhyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. Under my direction only is material nature working, and thus are all things moving. And the living entities, being superior energy to matter, have no choice and discrimination either to surrender unto the Lord or to surrender unto material nature. By surrendering unto the Lord, one is happy and liberated. But by surrendering unto material nature, the living entity suffers. So the end of all suffering means surrendering unto the Lord, because the surrendering process itself is bhavatchidam, liberation from all material miseries, swatyayanam, perception of all happiness, and sumangalam, the source of everything auspicious. Therefore, liberty, happiness, and all good fortune can be attained only by surrendering unto the Lord, because he is full liberty, full happiness, and full auspiciousness. Such liberation and happiness are also unlimited, and they have been compared to the sky, although such liberation and happiness are infinitely greater than the sky. In our present position, we can simply understand the magnitude of greatness when it is compared to the sky. We fail to measure the sky, but the happiness and liberty obtained in association with the Lord are far greater than the sky. That spiritual happiness is so great that it cannot be measured even by the Lord himself, not to speak of others. It is said in the scriptures, Brahma Saukhyam tu Anantam. Spiritual happiness is unlimited. Here it is said that even the Lord cannot measure such happiness. This does not mean that the Lord cannot measure it and is therefore imperfect in that sense. The actual position is that the Lord can measure it, but the happiness and in the Lord is also identical with the Lord on account of absolute knowledge. So the happiness derived from the Lord may be measured by the Lord, but the happiness increases again, and the Lord measures it again. And then again, the happiness increases more and more, and the Lord measures it more and more. And as such, there is eternally a competition between increment and measurement, so much so that the competition is never stopped, but goes on unlimitedly, ad infinitum, until infinity. Spiritual happiness is anandambudhi vardhanam, or the ocean of happiness which increases. The material ocean is stagnant, but the spiritual ocean is dynamic. This is what we call this. The necessity of those commentary is also very nice. 2.6.2. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adilila, 4th chapter, Kaviraj Goswami has very nicely described this dynamic increment of the ocean of spiritual happiness. In the transcendental person of Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. 37. Naham nayoyam yadrutam gatim vidur. Wait, I saw something in the sandbox. What offenses we are committing often. Checking this also sometimes becomes a tough process. Why checking on self is a tough process? I don't understand. It's a very simple thing. Very simple thing. We clearly understand. Every day, just spend some time and first of all, you should have read all of Prabhupada's books. If these things are not done, then I don't know actually how to help someone who is not learned in the science of Krishna consciousness. The first duty is to become learned in the science of Krishna consciousness. You have to understand how the process works. Then it's very easy to see what offenses we are committing. Most of the time, we are committing offenses only. Can you tell some devotees' names presently who are following Prabhupada's books as it is or trying to follow so that at least we can take their shelter? No, this is not how we go. You have to look at the results. You have to look at the results, who are more advanced, who are less advanced. Because through 6 activities, we can progress. Through 6 activities, we can regress. And the same person who has regressed may later progress. And the same person who has progressed may later regress. So you have to carefully observe the effect. We may not understand yasya prasada or yasya aprasada, but we can certainly understand bhagavad prasada or nagati kutopi. Based on that, we understand what shloka is quoted in Srimad Bhagavatam for surrendering. There are so many verses about surrender. So many verses about surrender. Practically in every canto we'll find. Many are there. Many are there.
Oh, regarding Prabhupada books, if we see the list of Prabhupada books in any book, there are some list of books. This is what you are talking.
Yes.
I think there are more than 40 books.
Yes. I generally say that one should first of all read all the books and have a thorough understanding. I first of all say that read all of the books and have a thorough understanding, first of all. First of all, we need to, it is like putting on the lights. When you're driving a car, you put on the lights. When you're driving in the dark, you need to have the lights on. Otherwise, you will not know which way to go. Putting on the light is not going to take you to the destination. But putting on the light will help you understand which is the right pathway. So reading Prabhupada's books is like that. So first of all, one should have read all of these books at least once and have a habit of reading them on a regular basis. Regular means, once every few days, like that. Otherwise, it's not very, very difficult to even understand whether you're progressing or regressing, or it's just a big mess. Okay, next 37. Naham nayuyam yadritam gatim vidur navamadeva kim utapare surah tan mayaya mohita buddhayas pidam vinirmitam chatmas samam vichakshmahe. Since neither Lord Shiva nor you nor I could ascertain the limits of spiritual happiness, how can other demigods know it? And because all of us are bewildered by the illusory external energy of the Supreme Lord, we can see only this manifested cosmos according to our individual ability. This is now elaborated in 2 verses beginning with the current verse. This is a statement of humility. Ritam gatim. One cannot understand. Ritam gatim can refer to the true destination. We cannot understand the true destination of Sri Vaikuntha. What to speak of that? The Maya with which the Supreme Lord creates this world, even this world can be understood only to the extent that corresponding to him. We have many times mentioned the names of 12 selected authorities, Dvadash Mahajan, of which Brahma, Narada, and Lord Shiva head the list as the first, second, and third in order of merit of those who know something of the Supreme Lord. Other demigods, semi-demigods, Gandharvas, Charanas, Vidyadharas, human beings or asuras cannot possibly know fully about the potencies of the absolute Lord Sri Krishna. The demigods, semi-demigods, Gandharvas, etc. are all highly intelligent persons in the upper planets. The human beings are inhabitants of the intermediate planets, and the asuras are inhabitants of the lower planets. All of them have their respective conceptions and estimations of the absolute truth, as does the scientist or the empiric philosopher in human society. All such living entities are creatures of the material nature, and consequently they are bewildered by the wonderful display of the 3 modes of material nature. Such bewilderment is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 7.13. Tribhir gunamayay bhavay ebhiridam ebis sarvavidam jagat. Every entity, beginning from Brahma down to the ant, is individually bewildered by the 3 modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. Everyone thinks in terms of individual capacity that this universe, which is manifested before us, is all in all. And so the scientist in the human society of the 20th century calculates the beginning and end of the universe in his own way. But what can the scientist know? Even Brahma himself was once bewildered, thinking himself the only Brahma, but later on, by the grace of the Lord, he came to know that there are innumerable more powerful Brahmas as well in far bigger universes beyond this universe. And all of those universes combined together form Ekapad Vibhuti, or 1/4 of the manifestation of the Lord's creative energy. The other 3/4 of his energy is displayed in the spiritual world. And so what can the tiny scientists with their tiny brains know of the absolute personality of God in Lord Krishna? The Lord says, therefore, Mohitam Nabhi Janati, Mamebhya Paramavyayam. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, they cannot understand that beyond these manifestations is the Supreme Person, who is the absolute controller of everything. Brahma, Narada, and Lord Shiva know about the Lord to a considerable extent, and therefore one should follow the instructions of these great personalities instead of being satisfied with the tiny brain and his playful discoveries such as spacecraft and similar products of science, as the mother is the only authority to identify the father of a child. So the mother is presented by the recognized authority, as Brahma, Narada, or Shiva is the only authority to inform us about the absolute truth. Okay, I'll stop with that. Tomorrow, Thursday, 26 December, Friday, 27 December, Saturday, 28 December, 3 days will be left for review. Because it's 5 chapters, I think that first we'll go through all the questions, short questions, and then we'll think how to have presentations. Achutaram Prabhu.
Prabhuji, in the schedule, it is not there, but tomorrow is Panchkrosh Parikrama. So will it
Tomorrow,
be?
Panchakrosha Parikrama?
Yes.
It happens almost during winter season, almost every month. Management arranges almost.
That's okay. So then I'll make some change. But if I make some change, then the assessment will come on 5th of January. And tomorrow I'll make it a holiday. And I can make some adjustment. That's okay, fine.
It's not, I think Achyutanam Prabhu is going, he might be.
No, but Panchakrosh Parikrama is fine. You know, this is,
Yeah, it's a
Parikrama
good
is
thing.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice thing.
I think it happens every month during winter season, from Kartik to God Purnima.
Every month is there?
Yeah, they go every month.
I have not heard of every month, but
Yeah, it happens.
Or we cannot have a holiday every month.
I am here since 2.5 months. This is the first time I am seeing.
No, they might have theoretically planned to make it every month, but not actually executed. These things are common now. We make some plan, but it may not be realistic to execute it. So if tomorrow's Panchakrosh Parikrama, I can modify it. It's fine. I don't have an issue with that. Something nice. I get a phone call. I need to speak to someone also. Okay. Wait. Something is here. Why ISKCON is not focusing to cultivate devotees rather than only focusing on making new devotees? No, that's not true. Today's ISKCON, there are several parts of ISKCON, they do bother about cultivating devotees. There are. In ISKCON India also. There are. Several gurus are talking about it. Several sannyasis are talking about it. Several teachers talk about it. You see, the Brahmanical sector of ISKCON, not only in India, outside India also, it's very clear that we should help devotees make spiritual progress and help them attain sadhana siddhi. They're talking all these things. What, since 20 years I've been hearing this. We're talking about this, very much there.
So are they also working on this?
What is there? You have to help the devotees to wake up and make their own spiritual progress. Spiritual progress means individually the Jivatma should decide to surrender to Krishna. You cannot externally make any administrative arrangement for all this. Hospital can make arrangements, but the patients should take up the medication and treatment and everything. Can only offer the treatment. The doctor can only give prescription. It is a patient who decides whether to should follow the prescription 100% or 75% or 50% or 25% or 0%. Okay, we'll stop with that.
So one more question is there. Actually, yesterday I was reading Bhagavad Gita. There in 6.35th sloka, it is mentioning. Prabhupada is writing in the purport that in the present age, I just read. no one can observe the strict rules and regulations, such as observing celibacy. Prabhupada is mentioning about this.
Okay, so
why Prabhupada is writing that no one can observe
this is a general,
celibacy?
in general, amongst, if you look at the people in general, they will not be able to handle all this. It's a fact. People in general cannot handle all this. How many people are brahmacharis in ISKCON also? Very few, no? Like that.
For general people, Prabhupada is mentioning like this.
Yeah. The general population cannot handle all this.
Okay, bro.
All right. We'll stop with this. I'm adjusting the schedule. Okay. On Shakal Patar Vesha, Pasandav Yevacha, Paritanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavibhyo Namo.